Hello, and welcome to the Euro What from WhatElseIsOn.tv. I'm Mike McComb, and I'm your host for this mini episode. A lot has happened in the last week, and we want to give you an update on what's been going on, as well as a preview of what's in store for this week. Ben Smith will be joining in later for a preview of the United Kingdom selection process, but let's go over the news from last week first. Ireland has selected acoustic guitarist Ryan O'Shaughnessy to represent them in Lisbon. Ryan first rose to fame on Irish soap operas before competing on Britain's Got Talent and Ireland's version of The Voice. No word yet on when his song Together will be released, but if you are interested in checking him out, he's actually on tour in the United States. We'll have a link to his tour date schedule in the show notes. Cyprus decided to scrap their plans for a national final and instead chose Eleni Foraira to be their representative. A pop star based in Greece, Foraira will be singing the song Fuego in Portugal. That song's release is also TBD. Follow-up from last week's episode, Ukraine's broadcaster confirmed that they will be able to broadcast Russia's performer Yulia Samylova, so shenanigans have been averted. For now. Finally, over the weekend, Malta and Switzerland made their selections. We will go in depth on both of those in our next full episode, which drops next week, but we will have links to the videos of the winning entries in our show notes. Malta selected Taboo by Christabel Borg, and Switzerland chose Stones by Zibs. So that makes 6 songs that have been chosen and publicly put on display. We only have 37 more songs to go before we're done with selection season. Coming up this week in the TV listings, Italy's San Remo Music Festival will be starting Tuesday evening and running through Saturday. The winner of the San Remo Festival has first dibs on representing Italy at Eurovision. They may not necessarily decide to move on to Eurovision. In that case, the festival will decide who the representative will be. San Marino will be having their first round of their national selection process called 1 in 360. The way that this process works, it's the first time that San Marino has done a national selection process, and people from all over the world were able to submit their entries online, and entrants were decided by public vote, fan club votes, and jury votes. 11 people will be competing, and there'll be 2 rounds and then a final. It's kind of an up-in-the-air process, so we'll see how it turns out. Denmark released their songs for their Dansk Melodi Grand Prix, which is their national final. The songs have been put on Spotify, but as of this recording, they aren't yet available for American audiences. They're still geo-blocked. But that national final will be airing on Saturday. There's actually a whole bunch of national selections, preliminary rounds, finals, all that stuff happening this weekend, and it's just going to get busier from here. If you go to our homepage at Eurovision.whatelsison.tv, you can see a full schedule of what's coming up this weekend. Coming up on Wednesday is the United Kingdom selection, Eurovision You Decide. Ben wanted to talk about that more in depth. We've got that discussion coming up right now.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Ben, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing all right. Yeah, just kind of recovering from all of the Eurovision finals and selection shows that are happening this weekend. Everything's really starting to ramp up quite a bit.
Yeah. It was a busy Saturday. I watched the end of the Swiss stuff today. Things are happening, which is exciting.
Yeah, and it's only going to get busier in the coming weeks, which is pretty exciting for us.
Yeah, like one thing that we mentioned last episode that I wanted to pull off in its own sort of mini discussion was the UK. If nothing else, purely from an American perspective, you know that at least their song's going to be in English, although the English tends to be kind of the national language of Eurovision. But the UK, it seems like somebody that where I have more of a connection with. But lately, and by lately I mean like the past decade, it's not been going great. Like they've only skipped out on Eurovision twice in 1956 and 1958, but they haven't won since 1997. So what's been going on there? So 1997, it was Katrina and the Waves.
Not with Walking on Sunshine.
Not with Walking
clear.
on Sunshine, but with... That was the 80s. This was with Love Shine a Light. Lovely song, but then like nothing has happened since like 1997. Not for lack of trying. It's just sort of been a long, rocky road.
Considering that I haven't started watching Eurovision till like 2010-ish, and UK still seems to be sliding even from then, and my understanding was that a lot of people consider the low point to be mid-2000s. It's like, ooh, okay. What's been happening with the UK, Ben?
So the big one is that in 2003, they sent some act called Gemini, and that's Gemini with a J.
Of course.
Got the dreaded nul point, or 0 points, in the final, which the UK blamed on the Iraq War. We're just like, people are not happy that we're in this, and they're taking it out on our Eurovision entry.
Which is pretty bold. Like, right before we started recording this, I watched that video, and it was not a good performance. Like, it started off key and never recovered. So, I mean, it's possible that there was just, like, some sort of technical issue that was happening during their performance, but
also it was just very bad.
Yeah. The war has caused a lot of problems since 2003. This should not be part of that list. So.
They had done sort of a final structure where they let people televote in and choose their entry. It's Eurovision, your choice. All the way up until 2007, 2008, we had like Scooch and Andy Abraham, both of which ended up in last place or near last place. No point, but still pretty low. And I was like, this is it, because in 2009, their entry went into 5th place. But if your entry would go to 5th place too if you had Andrew Lloyd Webber and Diane Warren writing it. Diane Warren doesn't write 24th place entries.
No. Now, was Scooch, was that the one with the airline
Yes.
flight attendants?
Scooch was the airline. It's just bad. Yeah,
because it's like, it's all double entendre, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It's double entendres that are performed like single entendres, and it's just not great. It's very Benny Hill, but without like the...
without the wackety sax. So, the epic wackety sax.
Yeah, the epic wackety sax, yeah. It's just bad. And again, like I was like, this is it. This is the bottom of the barrel. But then I forgot that in 2010, they hired 2 of Stock Aitken and Waterman to write the entry. And poor Josh Jubravi in 2010 got sent to Norway with a song that was clearly written for, well, we don't know if the person singing this is going to be a guy or a girl, so we're going to just write it very generically. And there are certain like Stock Aitken Waterman songs I like, but there's a certain plasticity to the sound that I appreciate them for. And it doesn't sound modern. It didn't sound modern in 2010. It wouldn't sound modern now. It sounds very 80s in a bad way. And it's not helped by like a very, very cheesy presentation and some backing singers who are flat.
I remember that one because that was my first Eurovision, and just being like, oh, UK, no, you need to stop this right now. Turn off the Casio, please.
I think at that point, the UK, at least internally, was like, oh God, we've thrown everything at the wall and nothing's stuck. What do we do? What they do is they take away the power from the people. Because the people have proven that given the opportunity to vote for something, they're not going to take it seriously and they're going to send the worst possible thing. Anyways, they bring things internal for a few years and start off with Blue, who I think was like some sort of 2nd or 3rd tier boy band that never made it to the States but had a couple hits in the UK. So it's somebody who's had a proven record of being able to sing a song well. And that did decently, and it didn't come in last. They're like, okay, cool. We're just going to keep doing this, and we're going to figure out somebody internally. And there seemed to be a pattern of, okay, so whose career currently needs a resuscitation? Because you have Engelbert Humperdinck, who has a very fun name to say.
Yeah, of Eddie Izzard fame.
Yeah. Anyways, Engelbert Humperdinck gets hired to sing a very nice ballad. This was 2012, so it's probably... They're busy hosting the Olympics. They've got one big event that they're in the middle of that's coming up. They don't want to have to worry about planning another big one the next year, too. So send somebody competent, but that will not win.
And they did a very good job of doing that.
They did an excellent job of it because he did not do that great. It's a nice song. It's a little bit slow. Probably a good room clearer. Not Eurovision gold.
Nothing objectionable about it. I still listen to it when it pops up on my iPod.
They followed up with Bonnie Tyler, who apparently got asked to do it at the peak of her fame in the 80s and wisely said no because she was too big for this. But back in 2013, she was back right at Eurovision level and brought some very nice sort of country tinge number, Believe in Me. and the general public did not believe in her, and she did not do that great.
Yeah, it was not a good performance at the final. It sounded really rough. It was kind of uncomfortable to watch. Still love you, Bonnie, but...
Following that, the UK was like, okay, so the resuscitation paddles for various careers have not really worked, so let's do some sort of other internal selection where we're going to work with like various indie artists, and we're going to do like a bunch of smaller club stuff and find somebody that way, which I thought was a very smart choice at the time. Have some sort of control over the quality while also not just like propping up some old person that probably shouldn't be at the Eurovision stage. They sent Molly, which at the time I remember really liking Children of the Universe and being like, yeah, the UK's got it. They figured it out this time. Every time I do that with Eurovision stuff, I am wrong. I'm very wrong. Do not believe me. And also, like, I went back, like, right before we started recording and listened to this, and I'm just like, yeah, this sounds like something that plays in the background of, like, the Christmas episode of Doctor Who.
Yeah, I just remember when this selection was made, just how outlandish the enthusiasm was from like my UK like Facebook and Twitter friends. They were just so gaga over this song. It's just like, have you listened to the lyrics? They're really not that great. Like it's really generic stadium rock-ish, but like with a Lilith Fair twinge. I'm not sure where the unbridled enthusiasm came from.
I would like to think that's largely just sort of oh, thank goodness it's somebody new.
Yeah. There was sort of like the NPR Tiny Desk concert-ishness about how they did their selection, which was encouraging.
Yeah, like, I really like that approach, but then again, they took that, and then next year, like, here's the next big thing, Electro Velvet. And the greater European broadcasting union was like, no, electro swing is not a thing.
Yeah.
I will say, like, that one killed at my Eurovision party, and I was I was slightly baffled. In fairness, the actual performance needed about, like, 4 or 5 more people dancing in the background, but it was very athletic. There was, like, a nice winking quality to it. Any sort of, like, winking, jokey sort of thing doesn't really align with Eurovision. They tend to go for sincerity.
Yeah, there was a sort of snarkiness to that particular selection and the content of the song, but then it also, I think it was trying to be a genuine electro swing style song, but then it gets into what we were calling on the website audible blackface, which just no.
The 20s style of scat singing does not really work today for a number of reasons.
Yeah, particularly from a pasty English gentleman. It was just very unpleasant to listen to.
You were very white.
Yeah, you sir, are not Louis Armstrong.
After Electro Velvet, I think that the bloom had faded off of picking things internally. It's like, okay, maybe we're also bad at this. Maybe we should just at least give it back to the people if we're all going to be bad at this. Which we had, I'm completely blanking on the names of the 2 boys. In the sort of One Direction-y number, they did not do that great. We had Lucy Jones last year, which that one surprised me. I did not expect that one to do as well as it did, and I think part of it was like the tinkering they did between like the version chosen and the version performed.
That one was definitely on my list of most improved entries of last year. All of the choices for last year's entries I thought were kind of dour and just really not peppy in any sort of way. And it's still a power ballady type song. And I'm not even sure what the tinkering is that they did, but like it's a very subtle change that they made, and it made it much more palatable.
I thought that the actual performance they put together for it was very lovely. A lot of that really helped boost them back to sort of like 15th place or so, I think. So they were really like the UK's goal for Eurovision is A, do we want to win? Which the answer has seemed to be, at least for the last decade, no, they don't really want to win. But also, how can we not come in last place?
Right.
With Brexit looming, they probably just want to be like, how can we not like anger our neighbors and have them lash out in this way? That is an abbreviated history of the UK and the Eurovision Song Contest for the last 15 years. We used to let people pick, and then we stopped. And then we started again because we also did a bad job.
Will people be able to do a better job? I don't know. Part of it depends on the choices that they have. So...
Right. I do like that the name of this is Eurovision. You decide.
Remember seeing an article last year where one of the hosts is Mel from Great British Bake Off, or Great British Baking Show, depending on where you are localized. And she was just like, oh yeah, by having it be Eurovision, you decide. That means when we don't do well, we can blame it on the public instead of on the BBC.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And she was like very upfront about that. Be like, oh, okay. She will be returning to host this year, along with Man Zelmerlöw, who won for Sweden in 2015 and co-hosted the 2016 Eurovision Song Contest. Mm-hmm. And yeah, he's kind of a Eurovision celebrity in that he'll pop up anywhere. He popped up in a couple of skits in last year's show. And yeah, very pleasant on the eyes, so he can pop up wherever he would like. So,
and it looks like they're getting kind of a glow up this year, because like I remember like a couple years ago, like they were doing the selection on like BBC 4. And it looks like they're on BBC 2 this year.
They are moving up the
moving
dial,
on up.
So yeah,
not quite on BBC 1 yet, but BBC 2 will do.
My understanding is BBC 2 handles most of the Eurovision stuff. Like I believe the semifinals are held on BBC 2, and it's just the grand final that's put on BBC 1, which is fine. I mean, that really does not affect any of us here in the US. So the format of this is there's going to be 6 songs that are competing. It'll be half televote, half international jury that will decide which entry will go on to perform in Lisbon. The songs were released on January 24th. There were videos placed on BBC's iPlayer, and they're also available on YouTube. They're all lyric videos.
And they're all terrible.
Yeah.
They're all just atrocious, and it's like they had one day at one of those photo places with like the brick wall. It's all destroyed and painted on. And like the direction was given to every performer was, you're a singer.
Yeah, it's very stock photo-y, and somebody found the Ken Burns filter on their Final Cut or whatever editing program they were using for the video.
That's very generous. I was going to say Windows Movie Maker.
I don't know how generic the Ken Burns effect has gotten in video editing. It's been a while since I've tinkered with that. But they're not great, but I mean, they're just there to kind of convey information than be like sources of entertainment, which is a weird way to think about it now that I'm saying it.
They're there to convey information, and that information is the lyrics, and they should not show those on the screen.
No. So we're going to kind of give our initial thoughts of these entries, going in the running order that will be happening on Wednesday. And we'll also have links to all of these videos in our show notes, so you can see and judge for yourself before you decide who goes to Eurovision, provided that you are in the UK, because we do not have a vote in this. So the first entry is from the trio Goldstone. It's a song called I Feel the Love. Here is a clip.
Mike, your take on this one?
Yeah, okay, so there was a trio last year named Ogene. They represented the Netherlands. There was a group of 3 sisters, very reminiscent of Wilson Phillips. Able to hit their harmonies. It was a very heartfelt song. It was about their mother who was struggling with cancer. This song has really none of that chemistry, story, anything. Looking at the photos on these videos, it looks like they just met maybe 5 minutes before the photos were taken. Not a fan of this entry.
Yeah, like I was not a fan of this one either. I think the first time I tried listening to it, I got through about 30 seconds and just like stopped. Having now listened to the full song for all 3 minutes, this stuff feels like at any moment it's going to transition from this into Bang Bang as part of a medley at like some county fair. Yeah, it's just not great.
But the thing is, okay, Bang Bang, I used to think was just a disposable pop song, but then I was in a battle of the bands at work a couple years ago, and Bang Bang was on our track list. It's a really, really hard song to execute well. Anytime that it comes up on one of these like Eurovision selection shows or American Idol or anything like that, my heart goes out to the person. It's like, okay, if you can deliver this, like, you deserve to win because it's that difficult. But if you fail, it's okay because it was designed so that you would fail, just so that you realize, oh, yeah, these notes just keep going up, don't they?
Well, and like the other thing this reminded me of unfavorably is Bananarama, in that they're all kind of singing in sort of the same voice. And there's like occasional harmonies, but like not really they're not really like hitting them as tightly as someone like O'Gene did last year.
Right. It's harmonizing on a single note instead of just being like, oh, I'm going to sing the A part up here, and then I'm going to sing the B part down here. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah. It feels like Bananarama attempting Bang Bang, and that's just not a good thing for anybody.
But now I want that.
I also would like to hear that at least once.
The next entry is from a man named Jazz Ellington, and his song is called You. Here's a clip.
She makes me coffee for our work. She'll sing my songs in bed till 3. By my side, she'll stick like glue. But she won't ever be you. Last night, I turned to gray.
Ben?
This is a hot nope from me.
I concur.
This is just like a bad Hallmark greeting card of a song.
Yeah. It's weird. One of the songwriters on it has had a lot of Eurovision experience and has had a lot of success at Eurovision and also a lot of baffling entries at Eurovision, but you would hope that on the average they would fall in the middle.
Yeah, this is not clicking for me. And mostly it's the lyrical content, like the actual melody's fine, the actual backing is fine. It's just the lyrics just no thank you. This is like listening to your friend talk about how they were on a date and they could only think about their ex.
Ugh. There's no there there.
There's no there there.
Yeah.
Is where we're getting to.
Yeah. As is the case with a lot of the people competing this year, Jazz Ellington was a contestant on the UK's version of The Voice. So he has the vocal talent. It's just not being paired up with anything worthwhile.
Yep. Which, speaking of Voice UK contestants not paired with anything worthwhile, Liam Tam. Let's play a clip of Astronaut.
When all your world falls apart, oh, I'll come pick you up. Oh, I could be your astronaut. Let me take you far away. I say I could be your astronaut. Take your body into space. When gravity's pulling you down and you can't breathe, I will be waiting. You know you can call me. I could be your astronaut. Your astronaut.
So here's the thing. I would really like a moratorium on space analogies, at least until next year's contest. And that's out of respect for Montenegro's entry from last year, where it took the space metaphor and made a song that was absolutely filthy, absolutely delightful. And this song can't even clean that song's shoes. Like that's how disappointing the metaphor is here.
I would like to second your motion and also add on a clause where if you do want to use space or astronauts or planets in the central metaphor of your song, you need to sit through at least one 50-minute lecture on that topic led by a university professor. And once you've completed that, then you may continue with your song.
Another one that's just kind of pulling on all of the Eurovision tropes of like space and rockets and stars and gravity and just all of these one-word terms that are supposed to evoke emotion, even if there's nothing to support that goal.
It's got like a little bit of kind of that Diplo, Justin Bieber, Where Are You Now? Mm-hmm. What Do You Mean kind of backing, where it's kind of tropical house light, kind of synthy, doing some interesting vocal sampling stuff, but still needs to be more up-tempo.
Yeah.
Like if it was just like that slight bit more up tempo, like I could see this thing suddenly getting like a bunch of Spotify streams as like part of some very nice playlist that I don't subscribe to. Right now, just as it is, it's just like a little bit too slow and a little bit too nothing there.
Kind of a snooze, so yeah. The next entry is called Crazy by Rhea. Here's a clip.
You got me like, ooh, you're on my mind, all of the time, like, ooh, you're on my mind, get on my mind, you're making me crazy, crazy, baby, just a little bit crazy, you're on my mind. Now people talking round town.
So this one's an interesting one. It was co-written by Greta Salome, who has represented Iceland a couple of times.
Yep.
She represented them in 2012 and most recently in 2016.
2016. I really liked her song from 2016. It was kind of sad it didn't get through, although I really liked it better in its original Icelandic, which is a very hipster thing for me to say.
Her song from 2016, I Hear Them Calling, it's kind of, I don't know if it's explicitly about like mental illness or like anxiety or any of those sort of topics, but it really does kind of capture that sort of mental space.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if she's trying to recreate that with Crazy, but it's not really working for me. Like lyrically, there's just not a lot going on with this entry.
Well, yeah, just lyrically it feels very, very generic, but it's generic in a way that somehow doesn't feel Eurovision-y enough for me. Like, this feels like slightly... Well, it's not that it feels too good for Eurovision, but it doesn't feel... It feels like a pop song that's like one draft away from having something there.
I can see that. Yeah, where it's... And this is something that has happened in Iceland before, and it's not necessarily a good thing, where it's just like, oh, it's a song that is mostly hook and not really chorus or verse, but... like the hook isn't really hooky enough on this.
Yes.
And yeah, there's just not a lot to kind of hang your hat on with this song.
Right. I mean, I see why, compared to some of the rest of the field, it's getting a lot more traction with listeners, because it looks like, because we've got some listener counts here, and it's currently second amongst those. So I see why it's maybe appealing to people, but it's something still seems kind of off about this one.
Doesn't feel like it's 100% where it needs to be.
Yeah, it needs just like a little bit of a push production-wise.
And who knows, maybe when it's performed live, that's the element that's missing, because with all of these lyric videos, it is all static images, and maybe there's just a charisma about the song that exists when you're seeing the performer actually performing it.
Exactly.
We mentioned the YouTube views. The one that's getting the most views at the moment is by Asanda, the song Legends. Here's a clip of that.
Anything like us before, 'cause you and me, we're making that history. Forget who we used to be. You know we're legends tonight. You and me, we're making that history, and now the whole world can see that we be legends tonight. Legends tonight. Hey, yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, yeah, yeah, yeah. We legends tonight. Paint our names up on the cave.
So Asanda is alumna of Britain's Got Talent, and looking over how she did on that show, she auditioned with a Rihanna song, did a couple of Beyonce songs, and you can definitely get that from this track.
You get that vibe from this track.
I'm glad that UK has finally figured out that it's like, oh, you have all of this homegrown talent. Maybe you should showcase that.
Yeah, maybe you should tap that keg. Yeah, there's something about this song that isn't quite grabbing me, but I can see why it could potentially do very well. And like, there have been a lot of entries in national selections this year that are trying to sort of tread this Rihanna light ground, and it seems like UK might be the one to deliver that if this does as well as it currently seems to be doing.
This is definitely my favorite of the bunch, so I'm all in for it. I mean, it's still, I don't know if it's going to turn the UK's fortunes around at Eurovision, but I'd like the idea of them sending something that is not typical for the contest, and possibly being the trendsetter for the next year, just because although a lot of Rihanna light songs have been at national selections, they haven't necessarily been advancing. So it would be nice to see maybe a move in that direction, and then maybe in 2019, 2020, we'll actually see like more of what is the current pop sound right now. Is this a timeless sound or a sound of our times?
Right.
Is this the new dubstep? I don't know. We'll find out in a couple years, I guess.
Like in a couple years, if we have a bunch of songs that sound like this, yes, it was, because a couple years ago, everything had a dubstep drop.
Yeah.
Everything. We have one more entrant to discuss.
Yes, the song is called Storm, and it's by Surrey. Let's take a listen.
I still believe in chasing rainbows. Storms don't last forever, forever. Remember, we can hold our hands together through this storm.
I don't like this song. I really don't like this song.
Something like of the entries, this is the one that clicked with me, and I don't know why, because it feels, it's not great, but like it was warm and comforting and like an old friend, and felt like, okay, we couldn't afford Annie Lennox, and even though we throw a bunch of money at her, she's not going to come. So this person has a short haircut. It's similarly generic. Like a lot of these entries are very generic. If nothing else, I appreciate the scientific accuracy. We mentioned the issues with the various space songs this year. And this one, I mean, the central hook of this song is that storms eventually go away, which is true. Storms don't last forever, Mike.
I would like a little bit more accuracy, or perhaps fewer mixed metaphors in a song.
But yeah, there's something that just felt very comforting about the fact that you knew exactly where this song was going, like just from like a hey brother, I'm like, there's going to be a hey sister later. And I was correct.
I just find this to be part of the UK problem, where I think they have either an adversarial or at least a fraught relationship with the concept of Eurovision. So there's just a lot of painting by numbers and just having these, not wasting their top talent on what they consider to be a less than noble cause. Like I'm not.
They're not sure whether they want to like go gung ho into this or just be kind of cool and aloof and over it.
Right. And I guess they're being kind of hipstery about it. Like, it's like, oh, we were in Eurovision before, it was cool, and now it's cool, so we don't want to like be anywhere near it. And just from a writing perspective, like, this song just drives me nuts, because it just sort of see like how the song was constructed, and that there was very little effort put into it. And if there was a lot of effort put into it, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's just like, yeah, you need to mask that better. I mean, it's one of the issues that I have, and this kind of goes with a lot of the other songs that are in this field, where it's like, English is the first language of the songwriter, but it really does seem like this went through Google Translate a couple of times. And it's like, I don't understand. I would like to know more about the UK's overall strategy with Eurovision. Like, is there a 5-year plan? Like,
I mean, one thing I will say in this entry's favor is that, unlike some of the other songs, like, I'm not sure I can mentally visualize what a performance of Crazy looks like or what Legends looks like, but I know exactly what Storm looks like. I see like the background. I mean, the background, obviously storm clouds. You have a thunderstorm going on. There's a wind machine involved. There are like some nice big sweeping camera moves from one side of the stage to the other during like the big uplifting chorus part. You know, it's very easy to see. So it has that going for it in that it feels very Eurovision-y, but that's also not necessarily, again, like, you should be trying to lead the pack as to where music is going rather than just repeating what's worked in the past.
Particularly because the United Kingdom, as one of the big five, they automatically get to go into the final. So, like, they don't have to go through the sort of vetting that the semifinalists have to go through. And, I mean, I guess that's the advantage of that position. I just want more of an A effort, and I feel like I'm getting a B minus C plus effort. You can do better, UK.
You can do better, UK. Well, and especially looking at, I mean, the UK is not just England. You also have Scotland, where you have interesting electropop from groups like Churches. You have Wales, who has like a whole other language. And you have areas like Cornwall, which also has its own like language. Like, there is Gweno, the singer from Wales, who also has Cornish ancestry, who does really, really interesting kraut pop that is like 5 minutes long. So it's certainly not suitable for this, but is doing interesting stuff. So you have the resources, use them.
Like, I saw an article just this morning where one of the Scottish broadcasters was just like, hey, why don't we try like rotation system, where 1 year Britain will choose and the next year Wales and then Scotland and then Northern Ireland. BBC's response was, the BBC is who chooses for Eurovision. Have a nice day.
And the BBC was like, hey, we're the BBC.
Probably won't be any major changes. Wednesday's show should be interesting. Like, I love Mel from Great British Bake Off, and Mans is a great host, so I have a feeling the two of them are going to have really good chemistry.
Yeah, I feel like if nothing else, the hosting is going to be fun. If nothing else, the skit bits will be a little bit more comprehensible than something like Malta's was, and we'll get into that next episode. But what's your prediction for Wednesday? Who do you think is going to take it?
Ooh, that is a good question. I mean, based on YouTube views alone, Asanda Legends seems to be running away with this. I'm going to put a big asterisk next to that just because last year San Marino was running away with YouTube views. Like, they were getting more YouTube views than Sweden was. Yeah, it's probably going to be either Legends or Crazy that ends up moving forward.
I think I would agree with you there, just based, like, let's assume that the people who are watching these videos on YouTube and on iPlayer are the same people who are going to watch this program on Wednesday and vote in it. If that's the case, those are your top two, and then the jury votes will ultimately decide which one of those makes it. But yeah, we'll see. Who knows? Maybe we will have a storm, or maybe one of these other ones that we immediately dismissed will take it by surprise, and then we can just go, "What are you doing?"
I have a really difficult time picturing the jury going for either "I Feel the Love," "You," or "Astronaut." Maybe for Storm, especially if it's the sort of performance that you were describing earlier with like all of the kind of predictable visuals. And I'm hoping for Legends just so that it's something interesting. Like, I think Legends would be the most interesting choice of the six.
Yeah.
Any parting thoughts before we let the UK decide?
Remember, UK, it's your decision.
Yes, and you have to live with the consequences.
That'll do it for this episode of the Euro What. Thanks for listening. The Euro What podcast is a production of WhatElseIsOn.tv. Our Eurovision News and Research Division specialists are Ryan Brazel, Mike McComb, and Ben Smith. Follow our coverage of the 2018 Eurovision Song Contest at our website, eurovision.whatelseison.tv. You can also catch us on social media at EuroWhat on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. If you'd like to contact us by email, we can be reached at esc@whatelseison.tv. We'd love to hear your questions and comments. You can subscribe to the Euro What on iTunes and Google Play. While you add the subscription, leave us a review and let us know how we're doing. We'll be back with more Eurovision updates next week.